Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you don't know me already, my name is Max and I started a car rental company back in 2021 with my brother. Started with one car, slowly grew to 20, super cool story. But today we're starting something new. We're gonna be doing interview style, podcast-ish type things, some online, like virtual, some in person. And this one is with Nick, and he's a host in California, super cool guy, and he's done some amazing things. So super cool conversation with him. I don't want to talk too much about it. I just want to jump in. So let's jump right into it. So I appreciate you coming on here. I really want to talk about your success, kind of how you got started, and see if we can inspire some people on our channel.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So how did you get started?
Um, Gosh, it was like 2016. I bought a what was it? It was a C43 AMG right when they came out, and I didn't drive it a ton because I had a work vehicle, and so it started sitting a lot in my garage, and so heard about Turo, and I was like, might as well throw my car in there. All it's doing is sitting in my garage and collecting dust. And, the wife's like, the payment's pretty crazy, for a car that gets driven maybe, once a week, twice a week. So I actually threw that on. Um, and it's almost like I cared about the car too much. And so I hated it going out. I wasn't a good host. I mean, the trips went fine. The car was always clean. The car was in great shape, but I would cancel, on people before their trips and everything because it was, it was a personal car.
Yeah,
And
your
so,
car.
yeah, I kind of cared about it. And, so I actually yanked that car off for a year or so. I sold it. I ended up getting a GLC 63 AMG. And, that thing sat for a long time and I didn't drive it a ton either. But, fast forward, I'd actually started a solar company 7 or 8 years back and had good success with it. So I didn't really need to have it on there, but I did. And then the pandemic actually hit. And then that's what kind of changed everything. So solar wasn't doing like super great. So pandemic hit. And my solar business is sales. So it was like in-home sales, a lot of what we did. And just wasn't doing anything like everybody else. And so I'd actually tried transitioning kind of out of solar. California was putting a bunch of restrictions and stuff on solar, and it just gotten harder over the years. So I was like, man, this would be like a good time to segue out of this into something that I want to do. And I kind of remembered how well Turo did. Like my car would book, it wasn't a problem. Renting the car wasn't a problem. It was just I was too attached to it. So I went on a Tahoe trip, talked to a few friends that are like really business minded, and I was like, hey, this is a crazy idea. I was thinking about buying a fleet of cars and just throwing them on Turo and see how well they do. So I actually went and bought a 2021 Ford Bronco Sport, paid cash for it, bought it brand new from the dealership and threw it on. And this is when rental cars weren't renting. Our rental car companies didn't have a lot of cars. Yeah, so I just threw it on there, and all of a sudden it booked for like 3 months, delivery fees on everything. I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna be a millionaire. This is like too easy. It
Yeah.
slowed down a little bit from then, but after that, that was May of 2020, and after that we added 4 or 5 cars, 2 Series BMW convertible, a Porsche, several other cars, and they went really well. And then after that, I was like, well, I might as well just go, balls to the wall on this. And so we just went super hard. Went up to about 23 cars within under a year. And yeah, and then now it's more of like fine tuning. I think we did a really good job with market research, and we've had some awesome cars, but we definitely have fine tuned our cars kind of for our market. We don't get the super high end stuff, but I don't like doing the super low end stuff either. So we're kind of like a happy medium, to where I think it's affordable prices, nicer cars, and family cars, SUVs. We kind of tailor ourselves to Tahoe trips, a lot of all wheel drive SUVs, with chains and things like that. And then we have, some fun cars for like Napa. So we get a lot of Napa Tahoe stuff up here.
Nice. So You jumped 23 cars in 1 year. I mean, that's for anybody. That's a lot of cars. Did you
Yeah.
cash for all of them?
No, started running out of money, but I kind of changed up the strategy quite a bit. It was a lot cash at first, and then sinking 25, 15, 10, 20, and all of a sudden I'm $300,000 deep into cars, and I'm like, huh, I wish I could cash these out and take the cash back out, which I actually did on a few cars. I actually ended up selling the Bronco Sport I had, cashing that all the way out. I actually made money from what I bought it on, plus had it on Turo for a year.
That's
So
huge.
yeah, so I bought the car for like 34,000 out the door. I ended up selling it for like 35.5, and I'd actually rented it out an entire year, and it had like 20,000 miles almost on it, like 18,000. So
That's something you don't hear about very often.
yeah, that prices were definitely better at that time on used stuff, but
Yeah.
I think if you have a good exit strategy and you kind of know what cars are hot at that time, you can kind of get
Yeah.
out of cars and make a profit on them.
Yeah. So is that still your strategy? Are you still financing cars through dealerships?
Yeah, I typically do just dealerships. Um, I usually do out of state, a lot of stuff out of state.
Okay.
So I bought a C8 last week. I bought a Bronco Sasquatch package, a Yukon, and a Suburban all within the last 30 days.
Holy crap.
So I brought those all in from out of state. I mean, you said you're in Arizona, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So California, the prices have still been terrible.
Mhm.
So I work deals across the United States on finding the best stuff, because if you go to like Midwest, I find a ton of my SUVs and stuff in Midwest $10,000 under what they're asking for in California.
Wow.
So like my Suburban I bought out of Utah for I think 58,000 out the door, and everything in California that's a 2022 Suburban was like 68 to almost $70,000. So, and I think, everybody's kind of afraid of doing the shipping or buying cars out of state, or they talk to one dealership that doesn't like dealing with people out of state. You just
Yeah.
gotta keep, you just gotta keep trying. Keep calling dealerships, because eventually someone's gonna work with you, and you're gonna get a good deal. And shipping is literally like, to get my C8 from Illinois was on an enclosed trailer. I got it for $900. It
Whoa.
was it was on a trailer with like 5 different Ferraris. So
That seems
yeah,
like a pretty good rate. Wow.
yeah, that was a crazy deal. But like 1,100 to 1,200 bucks from the Midwest to California. So
And the money you're saving on the car anyways, I mean, it makes up for that and some.
yeah, I think I saved almost $15,000 on the car from just bringing it in from out of state.
Holy crap.
Yeah, so it was a no brainer.
Yeah. So you're financing all of them. So tell me how that works. Are you just financing through the dealership banks?
Yeah, just depends. I go in with the strategy with dealerships, not exactly letting them know what I'm doing, but
Yeah.
also kind of like, hey, I'm like a pro at doing this.
Yeah.
So I usually set out my standards with them before I start tailoring a deal. You know,
Okay.
pretty much what I'll tell them is, hey, look, I want this car at 72 months. I already know what the bank rates are going to be around for my credit or whatever I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'll tell them, hey, I got great credit. Hey, decline. It's going to be, somewhere around the 5 to 6% range. If you can
Mhm.
get me into this payment and everything, and I've already done the math on the car,
Yeah.
with the auto calculator, I'll just go in with my tax title license. I know that I'm paying X amount for this car. This is how many years I want this car for. That's when I'll put it in and be like, okay, the payment should come out around, say $1,000 for it. And I'll usually come down a little bit lower, be like, okay, if you can get me out the door for 960 a month, then
Mhm.
we'll take the car. So
Yeah.
that's usually when they'll be like, okay, and then they'll come back and be like, okay, well, we can do it at like 980, and be like, okay, I need to add gap on there. Can you guys throw in gap? And they're like, no, we can't. So then I'll negotiate any kind of extras that I would normally buy in financing. I'll try to negotiate it in that price. And so then I end up coming up to like $1,000 with any warranties and things like that. So I've already done all the math. I already know everything about the car. And then usually you'll get salespeople that don't understand, a lot about it.
Uh-huh.
And then, you kind of, a lot of dealerships are super lame, like, oh, come on in, like try to give you the runaround. But
Which
if you find the right dealership and the right guy, like a manager or something like that, to say, okay, I can do this deal. They get you right through financing. You say, okay, I'm done. Let's do the paperwork on this. So, as long as you're setting the standards before and you already know what the car should be per month, and that's what you want that deal to be, then great. Because like a lot of times, you'll be like, okay, yeah, I want this deal. This is what it should be with the numbers. They come in like $200 over, and you're just like, okay, well, you know, didn't run my credit. It's a waste of time. I'll just go right to the next dealership. So,
Wow. I've never even heard about somebody doing that much prep for going into dealerships. A lot of people are super excited and hungry to get into Turo, so they'll just go to a dealership and buy whatever they heard is the best car.
yeah.
And I've never heard about that extensive research, so I think that's definitely smart. If you're going to buy from dealership, do the research and definitely get the best prices.
I like new cars, so I like going to dealerships. I like not having anybody else's problems.
Yeah.
I do buy some used stuff, but it's typically like under 10,000 miles used stuff. Or, I've had like one car that I bought that was a 2018 from a dealership used with like 30,000 miles, end up having an accident that wasn't reported. Brake sensors went out in the bumper. It's like $4,000, and I got the dealership to pay for it because I bought it CPO'd.
Yeah.
But they were giving me all fits about it. So it's like, and I like newer cars. So I usually just typically go for new, less headache, less problems. Cars are in great shape.
Yeah.
Just a little.
That makes sense. So how many cars have you put through the operation, like bought, rented, then sold? I mean, have you seen?
Yeah. So since I've been doing it like full time, I actually have my vehicle list. I can see what's been actually deleted on here. So I had, let's see. So I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cars that I've sold. So I sold a ZL1 1LE Camaro, 2 Bronco Sports, 3 Wranglers, my GLC 43 that I had, or my C43, then my GLC 63. So those cars have all been into my fleet and exited. So
Nice.
the strategy on my exits are kind of spontaneous. It's more like I had a 2022. Oh, that's not even listed on here. I actually had a 2022 Bronco, full size, and it had a soft top. And I had a bunch of money sunk into it. My wife didn't like it. Was green in color, and then, I wasn't like a huge fan of it. It did really well because it was really popular at the time, but I was really wanting a hard top. So it's like, okay, well, I do a lot of this stuff for me because I like cars. So I bought the hard top with the Sasquatch package. It looks super awesome. And then some of the other strategies are like, my Wranglers. I'm always shopping what kind of deal I can get for my used cars. So I could only have the car for 9 or 10 months, which isn't the smartest when you're doing your taxes. You want to keep it at least for a year. But like, if the offer is good enough, I'll take it. So, with my Wranglers, I bought them for like 40,000. I got offers for like 44,000 from a dealership. So it was like, well, that's an easy option for me. It's an easy out. I can go buy other stuff. I've rented it out for 15,000 miles on the car right now. It's about a year old. I can upgrade to another car and find a good deal on it. So it really just depends. I've never had anything come from 0 to 80 or 90,000 miles and exit that way, which that's kind of where my exit strategy is going to be on some of my cars, about 80, 75,000.
Yeah.
But for the most part, bringing cars in and them out, it's more of if I can get a good deal for the car at the time, if I'm shopping for something else, if I feel like a car's not doing well and maybe the market's a little bit saturated on that car. Like I just sold my Telluride, did it for 2 years, or had the car for 2 years, did fantastic. And I just had a feeling it wasn't going to do that great because the amount they want you to rent it for is so low, and it wasn't really, kind of slowed down a little bit. And literally, I sold it 2 months ago. It's still on my profile, and it hasn't booked one time in 2 months.
What?
So, yeah. So just randomly, I sold that car, and it did terrible. So it's, like, it was a good thing, though. But, I like to tell you guys they're cool. But
that's super cool.
I guess nobody else does right now. So.
And that's tough. I mean, it's pretty seasonal, the type of cars, I guess.
Yeah.
question. So out of all the cars you've had, I mean, you've had quite a bit of cars. What do you think has been your favorite car as far as performance?
Um, so I'll tell you for like my least favorite and my favorite.
Yeah.
So, I think a lot, it really is market dependent. But I feel like for my market, large SUVs do really well. So, I think in December or leading into January, I had three cars that did like $5,000 each for those months, and they were a Tahoe, a Yukon, and an Expedition. So those all three did 45 to 5,500 bucks that month. So those do really well. And I mean, they're great cars. The newer ones, the new body styles are super awesome. So large SUVs do really well, especially. So my market really helps with Tahoe. So all-wheel drive and chains, T-trips, all that stuff. They do really well up there. But and the nice thing is summertime they still do well. So it's not such a seasonal car to where like I have a Jaguar F-Type
Yeah.
that the thing will pretty much sit all winter, and then as soon as summer and spring comes, all of a sudden you see it catching up to all my other cars. It ended like second in my fleet last year, and it sat for like 4 months. So yeah, it'll do really well summer. It'll catch some traction, and all of a sudden, it's starting to go up the ranks in my fleet.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. So what's your least favorite car then?
So far my fleet, one of like we were doing really well a couple summers ago. I couldn't buy cars fast enough. I didn't
Yeah,
have like my cars were always out. It was like every weekend I'd be lucky if I had a car left over for myself. So I'd have
yeah,
to mark one car up super high so it
yeah,
wouldn't rent. So, it was probably the worst decision. It wasn't like a terrible decision, but I bought the car way more than it was worth. And
yeah.
then ended up it doesn't rent well. I have an A220 Mercedes. So
Okay.
still a nice car, looks great. I think I paid like $4,000 or $5,000 over what I should have on it, and
Yeah,
that was just me being like, it doesn't matter. It's gonna rent anyway. I got really great interest on it, and everything was fine. The car is good. It still makes its payment. I don't think I'm ever negative on the car each month, but it doesn't ever make me money. So
yeah, yeah.
that's the most annoying car I have for sure, and I'm upside down in it a little bit, so I'm just gonna you know let
Let it
it
run.
rip, the wheels fall off on it. Yeah. So
Well, and that's fine. I mean, everyone has to make that one mistake of a car to learn
yeah.
that I
That,
can't do that, and I have to do the research next time. So then
yep.
the cars that I resell make money, and then I make money during the rental. So
Yeah.
I mean, happens to everybody.
Yep.
Uh, so I mean, you have a pretty large fleet. How do you operate it? Is it just you managing it?
Just me, man. So
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, I'm in a weird growing position right now to where it's either I could probably add two or three more onto my plate and still be fine. I have it pretty dialed in for my. I mean, we have 2,000, trips, and we pretty much have never had under a 4 star. Pretty much 99% of under 5 stars. So I mean, I've got dialed in, happy customers, great pickup location, and everything's fine. It's just if I grow to that next mark, it's almost like, well, then you have to hire. I might have to get a spot to store some more cars,
Yeah.
things like that. So it's a weird transition to where I'm going to have to add five, six, seven, eight more cars just to cover the running cost of either hiring somebody or getting a location. So
Yeah.
it's like I'm at that weird jumping point to where, now I could either go to 50 or 100. And
Yeah.
then that's what I want to do. But at the same time, things are going really well right now. So it's like, do I really need to jump to that many cars and make it a headache?
Yeah.
So, then my whole thing is I wake up about 5:30, 6 a.m. I head out to the airport. Like this morning, I had 4 cars that went out. Tomorrow, I have 7. Friday, I have 9. So usually on like a big day, a double digit day, like a 9 or 10 day, I can usually get done with my whole day by 1 if I leave that early. And
Yeah.
then like the day I left pretty early, but I was out of the airport by like 9 o'clock and back home by 9:30. So
Okay.
hang
And
out with my kids.
Like everything's at the airport. You have your car stored there. You just go and clean them, or how do you operate it?
Yeah, typically the way I manage my fleet and the way I keep my cars out is my cars don't sit a whole bunch.
Yeah.
So, I'll I'll tailor the pricing to go out for the weekend. Once it comes off a weekend trip, I'll really lower my Monday and Tuesday and then maybe possibly my Wednesday. And
Mhm.
so I can get a booking for that little gap. And then when I go out, wash the car, check it back out, and then it comes back probably like Wednesday, Thursday, go back out, wash it, check it in to make sure the car's okay, and then send it back out. So I kind of break my week up into almost 2 or 3 parts.
Okay. So are the cars at the airport the whole like always?
Always, always.
Do you pay for the parking tickets?
Yeah, yeah.
Is
But
that-
that's why I've got to get them out. So
yeah, yeah.
that's why I don't have a car sitting for hopefully no more than 2 days. I mean, parking at the very worst is $10 a day, and
Yeah.
out in the economy lots that I use. So
Yeah.
it's not terrible. But if I have a car that sits for 2 days, 3 days, it's not like a huge deal. That's why I really try to get those cars out from on that Monday to Wednesday mark because I know they're going to go out on the weekend. My cars, I'm usually like 90% booked on weekends, and then usually if it hasn't booked by the weekend, I might get a local trip at my home location. Usually, if it's a later booking, like a Saturday, Sunday booking, it's always from my local location.
Yeah.
So, I'll have to go out and grab the car and bring it back. But yeah, my strategy is to make sure that the cars get out on that Monday through Wednesday. So I'm playing with my calendars all day long. Like this car hasn't gone out, this car hasn't booked. I need to lower it a little bit. Checking. I'll go on Google Chrome with incognito mode, see where my cars are ranking on the list, and just doing whatever I can, adding additional distance, taking off additional distance, dropping it by $2 or $3, adding early bird specials or discounts. So whatever I'm playing with the metrics, changing cover photos, whatever I have to do to make the car kind of pop, and then try to get it out those days. So I'm playing with the app all day long. Instead of scrolling through Facebook or Instagram, I'm literally looking at new cars on my market, what cars are booked for the weekend, Expedia, or seeing what cars at rental car places, how many cars they have on file. So I'm constantly going through and playing with it just to try to get the cars to filter up at the top and be the next car booked. So I'm always doing that.
I think that's a really good piece of advice. Don't stop. Don't get comfortable. Don't create the listing and then be fine with it. You have to always fix it, change it, because as people evolve and like people get better, you can't stay stagnant, or else they're gonna beat you every time. So that's I think that's a really good piece of advice. That's
we slowed down recently for, I mean, usually that gap between winter, that February, March is usually a little slower for my fleet. And so, something that, I couldn't get my cars to filter up towards the top without dropping the rate like a ton, which I didn't want to do. I added 50 miles per day on the mileage, and I got my cars to like filter up at the top. So, just those little things that a lot of hosts I feel like aren't doing, so just playing around with your listing and then changing your cover photos. If you feel like the pictures aren't that great, they're probably not. So I think that's probably the biggest key is everybody sees my cars on there. It's kind of a uniform thing. I usually take the pictures at the exact same spot. And I have 8, 9, 10 really good photos with the car super detailed, because nothing's funnier than you see a host that has a, say like a brand new M3 and the pictures are like sideways, like zoomed in on the steering wheel. It's just like you bought a, you have a $90,000 car, you want to rent this thing, but the photos look so bad, no one's going to rent it.
That's what you just said is exactly what they do. They have a crazy nice car, always sideways, always at some weird. They try to get like creative with it.
Yeah, like the loading the photos on Turo's app isn't the best, and playing around to where, I always take the pictures with the phone sideways, and the way that Turo's app kind of takes them, it fits in there, and it filters it right if you take the right pictures to begin with. But once you start like editing the photos and making different sizes and stuff, and you put on Turo, it'll put the car at the very top. You'll see like the tires, the wheels. So it's not the most friendly app to use when you're putting your pictures on. So I'll go take like 80 or 100 photos of the car, and you know really pick it down between maybe 10, 11, 12 photos that fit in Turo super well. I'm not like a pro at taking pictures, but there's been, like last week we got the Bronco and Corvette, went and took pictures at, I thought it was a good time of day. I like to take my photos later in the evening, right before the sun goes down. It's typically when the cars will photo the best.
Yeah.
And cars look like crap. So I went and re-detailed them and did everything like 2 days later, took them both back because I was super unhappy with the photos. And so, I'm a stickler on making sure the car's super presentable in its photos. And, when people scroll past it, that's the first thing they see, like, oh, this car's sick. It's a little bit more expensive than this one, but this one looks way better. This
Yeah.
host has 2,000, 5-star trips. Let's just go with this guy and spend a little bit extra money. So,
Yeah. That's yeah, that's a good point for sure. So I know you're kind of capped for what you're capable of doing by yourself. So are your future plans just to kind of dial in what you have, or do you want to grow up to 1,500 cars? What are your future
I
plans?
would like to go to 50 or 100. I think that's kind of what we plan on. I think SAC's a pretty good market. We don't have like the big highs or the big lows. I see like, Florida or LA and, these places, it's like, damn, like they're dropping their cars like $30 a day. It's probably because they're not renting. So we're a good market as far as like, there's not a lot of highs and a lot of lows. So I can really know what the cars are going to do when I get them.
Yeah.
So I would like to get up to that amount, but then at the same time, it's kind of nice where we're at in size wise because
Yeah.
I could get rid of probably 5 or 6 cars right now, dial them in with something I know will do better at this point,
Yeah.
and or add 3 or 4 additional more right now. So I think my max would probably be about 35 cars. So I mean, I could probably grow about 5 to 7 more cars and feel confident that I'm not going too crazy.
Yeah.
Um, those summer months, so July, August, September, October, those are my super crazy months to where like I have a lot of cars like double book for weekends, come home on Sunday and then go right back out Sunday night. So
Yeah.
like those days suck and they're kind of crazy, but I just know that come wintertime, it's not going to be as crazy, and then springtime's kind of slower. And I have a little bit of help here and there, but
Yeah.
dialing it in to where I'm not driving cars back and forth to airport. A lot of cars are just staying out there. It's really just made it so much easier. I used to like, this is kind of funny. So whenever I had like from 5 cars to 10 cars, that was like the biggest pain in the ass area was 5 to 10. That was like so I'm playing with this clip. Uh, 5 to 10 was the hardest because you would have 5 or 6 cars go out, and if I had to take a car out, I'd never have a ride home. It's a 30
Yeah.
minute 30-minute drive to the airport. So
Oh,
then
wow.
I'd Uber home. But then when I got to like 14 or 15 cars that it was keeping out at the airport, it's like I always had a car back. So no
Yeah.
matter what, I have a car every time I'm out there. There's hardly a time where I can go out there and not have a car ride back. So like tomorrow my Tesla goes out and my BMW goes out, drive a car back, drive a car back. So it's
Yeah.
almost like that. The smaller number of cars that I had, it was actually more of the pain in the butt on logistics of them. But
Yeah.
the more cars I have, it's gotten actually easier.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, same for us. Getting started was the toughest part. The couple cars is always harder. And also
Yeah.
figuring out your process, figuring out how your system's going to work.
Yeah.
But then once you get to a certain threshold, for us, it was 10 cars. Once we hit 10 cars, it's like, oh, this is so much easier.
Yeah,
Because
it is.
the process, we understood the numbers. I mean, just the buying and selling of everything was so much easier.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, and then I think it starts to get harder again once you get to that like 30 plus mark.
There's another threshold, yeah.
Yeah, the thresholds are kind of funny, and that's kind of what I found with solar and building teams and business and sell and things like that. There's always like a threshold where it's like, okay, well, now you just take on a bunch of other stuff, and it's going to be hard again until it gets easy again. So,
Yeah.
so that's where we're at.
So if you were to give maybe one piece of advice to people in those early stages in that first kind of segment of Turo, what would you say is your best piece of advice?
There's probably a couple of things I could do better at, and then things that I wish I would have known kind of before is tracking what you're actually making. Because the numbers look good a lot of times, and like you like skim in your head, yeah, this car probably profited like $800 this month. But once you break down, gas and washing and time and everything, it's like, well, is this worth it or not? So that's when you can tell, like, I know my Mercedes is doing crap, my A220, and a lot of my other cars, they could be doing a lot better. But actually knowing your numbers is huge. So either doing, just a basic Excel at first and tracking your actual numbers and seeing what you're making on cars, because it'll help you in the long run with dialing things in, helps with taxes and things at the end of the year. So that's something I can do better at. Something for advice, getting started. Um, just doing market research is probably one of the biggest things for us. Um, Finding the right car right off the rip was lucky. I feel like if we would have gone and got a few cars that we wanted, it would probably be a different story right now. But we found the right car from the beginning. It was right when Bronco Sports came out, and we threw that on there, and everybody loved it, and we got such a great dollar amount, and it was such a great car, and it was really like the success to like actually want to start this. Like, okay, well, car payment I think was, oh, actually I bought that one cash. We had another one I had a car payment on, but I think the car payment on one of them was like $500 if you were to buy a car payment on it at that time. And I think the car was doing like 15 to $2,000 a month, so almost 1,000, probably like 1,200 to 1,300 bucks in profit on the car, after everything was all said and done. So it was like, just knowing that that car would do well in my market was like a huge thing that separated us. So finding the right car is huge. Not all cars are great cars just because you like it. I see people that throw on like quadrifolios or like, something that's like Italian or like something that they really like, but they
Mhm.
don't rent, and they don't rent for like a ton of money. And then they're stuck with this car they thought was going to do really well. So, you
Yeah.
know, maybe LA, you're doing convertibles. Maybe for like Tahoe, we're doing like big SUVs, things like that. So finding the right car, market research is probably the biggest thing when you're first starting. But if you already have a car too, it's always nice just to test out on the market if you don't mind.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you have any questions for me or what we're doing?
Um. Yeah. So what part of Arizona are you in?
Phoenix.
You're in Phoenix. What kind of fleet do you guys have?
It's pretty basic. I mean, we have a lot of like minivans, so Chrysler minivans,
Yeah. The
SUVs. So
Civics?
we have Jeep Cherokees, and
Yeah.
then Chevy Tiguan's, and then sedans. We really like Chevy Malibus, Ford Fusions.
Okay.
We started with Fiestas, and we really
Yeah.
liked that. Kind of got us into the game, but the depreciation on those that we found
Yeah.
wasn't great. So we kind of changed up a little bit in our, like you always, kind of tweaking and evolving
Yeah.
our. But yeah,
Yeah. I feel like with the depreciation ones is leasing those cars. Like my Mercedes, I have about 7 of them,
yeah,
maybe 6 of them. I only bought one, which was the bad idea, and then the rest of them I leased on high mileage leases. So I just have a 3 year, 4 year, 15 or 18,000 mile lease, and it's just going to be an easy, transition out of the car. Don't have to worry about the depreciation.
and you can sell your lease if you need to, if
You
you want.
can. It's kind of funny is I actually had an X3 that I bought, and it's a killer. It does really good for me. So
Yeah,
I didn't sell it, but I was looking to sell it because I bought it before car prices went crazy. The car
yeah,
value went up about $10,000 more than I could have paid the lease off for. And I
wow,
went to go sell it, and they're like, "You can't sell it." And I was like, "What do you mean I can't sell it?" They're like, "It has to go back to the dealership." So actually, car financing companies actually have, depending on which one it is, have clause in their agreements to where you can't sell the car within the lease term. You have to turn it back in then the lease. And most finance companies won't do that, and they really don't care about that. But when the shortage of cars was happening, they wanted their cars back, so they were actually implementing that clause in the contract. So it made it so I couldn't sell the car. so,
wow, that's
so
crazy.
yeah, I was like, damn, I'm gonna make 10 grand off this so easy. And then I went to sell it, like, you can't.
Oh, that hurts.
BMW doesn't want you to sell the car. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll keep it. And I'm glad I did, because it ended up it's one of my best cars. It's been stolen twice. So with
Twice.
yeah, so I've 2,000 trips, like I said, I've had one car like not returned. It wasn't like really stolen, but But this car was actually stolen twice. So it's Turo Go, and it actually just happened 2 weeks ago. Got the car back. So Turo was really good about it. He ended up one of the investigators for Turo calls me. He's like, "Hey, your X3 just went out on a trip. We need to get that car back." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Whoever picked up the car is not the actual renter." So I don't know how it flagged it or how they knew, but they sent a repo truck with me. I ended up calling the cops. Ended up getting the car back. So it wasn't like a big deal. So not to discourage people from doing Turo. So I've had 2,000 trips, and two problems with possibly stolen cars. So it's
Yeah.
not it doesn't happen often, but you're going to run into snags with anything that you do. There's always some sort of risk. But yeah, so what I've started doing, and Turo is pretty good at checking and verifying. But even though it's Turo Go, I still ask customers for their IDs. Even though it's part that they don't have to do that, I still do it just because that would have caught that guy. And I've had numerous people pick up my cars that weren't supposed to be picking up my cars, and you kind of find out along the way that that wasn't the actual renter. I've had several times that's happened. So, I would say that's a bit of advice for somebody if you're using a Turo Go outfit. Just and Turo Go, for anybody that actually watching, is you can self-check into the cars. Turo's supposed to be the one that handle the actual transaction of getting the IDs, so you're not required to get IDs with self-check-in. But now I'm just still doing it. So what's funny is the account that stole it was hacked, but he had favorited like 10 cars, and all 10 were Turo Go cars. So he was obviously targeting the Turo Go cars.
Yeah.
Either just don't have it on Turo Go, or I do like it on Turo Go just because if people are looking for Turo Go cars, it filters. Having your cars in as many filters as possible is always a good thing. But I'm still just checking the IDs. So
Yeah, that's smart. It's always better to be safe than sorry.
Absolutely. Yep.
Especially when these cars get expensive.
Yeah, I think the one question I had for you though is private rentals. I obviously get asked all the time if I want to do a private, and I have so many customers that have rented from me for a long time. They're like, "Hey, I can always just do this on the side with you." And it's always, it's kind of the safety and security of having Turo kind of there for it is why I've kind of done it. But I'm leaving a ton of money on the table. Just from when I started, I was on the 75 plan, went to the 90 plan. I did the math on it, and in 2021, I lost $60,000. After all claims and everything were taken out of that, I would have profited another 60 grand if I would have been on the 90-10 that year. So their insurance, I would say people like a smaller house that only has like 2 or 3 cars, I would, suggest the 75-25 plan. Or if you're in a market that's more likely to have accidents and things like that, maybe be on that. But if you have like a large fleet of cars, I think the 90-10 is, by far I lost so much more money by being on that. But I'm leaving a lot of money on the table by not adding private rentals. And I'm pretty familiar with marketing and things like that as far as Google search and things like that. I've always wanted to set up my so are you driving traffic back to your Turo listings, or you're just doing it all separate?
Yeah. So it always starts with the Google My Business. So setting up the profile. I don't know if you have an LLC, but like creating a let's see, like your Google My Business with your LLC, and then so like this is ours. This is our Google My Business reviews and stuff like that. And then on your website, you can put a system into it. Ours is HQ Rentals, and it pretty much is just this. We built the rest of the website, but they built this little piece in here.
Yeah.
And so pretty much it allows people to go in and, I mean, just like Turo, you can like book a car from beginning to end. It goes through the dates, the cars, the features. They can pick the insurance. They can upload their ID. They upload their insurance. Like, it has everything. It takes the payment. So I'd say the one tool that really has made us successful with this is this piece right here. And not only when they pay for it, they sign it and they get the agreement. which is, I mean, I guess you don't need to go that crazy if you're just doing a couple private rentals. You could just have like a rental agreement and like a little system of your own. But if you're looking to push traffic and like really get that built, website HQ Rentals is super helpful to like manage everything.
So HQ Rentals is kind of a white labeled like site you can put your cars on. Like
It's not. No, the only thing that they provide is the software where people can book through. So it's
okay.
still coming to you like
Okay.
directly to you. You have to set up a processing through them.
Okay.
Let me show you their site. Yeah, they just provide the system and software to integrate into your website to allow you to do private rentals. So it pretty much takes you from being like a Turo host to kind of like a Turo host, but on your own.
Okay.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, a lot of money left on the table. This is their site.
Yeah. They have
Um,
agreements and things like that, or you have to.
we have our own, but they do. They have agreements.
And so, do you upload your own agreement into theirs, and then
Yep,
it's
yep. We uploaded our agreement that we had that we kind of modified as things have happened, and then we've put in our own processing. They have processing, which the standard is like 2.9% plus 30 cents a transaction, which is fine. It's just like basic, but for us, we wanted a cheaper option, so we did it ourselves. This is how they do it. It's billed on a monthly plan based on the amount of cars. So you'd probably be on the standard, which is what we're pretty close to. And they kind of give you different features. There is a setup fee to like integrate it into your site, and that comes with like all the customization. You could have it like really simple, but you can have it like really complicated, like add as many features and stuff as you want.
Yeah.
But definitely, if you're looking to go private, it's definitely a cool tool. It's helped us.
So they give you like when you sign up, they give you an account rep that onboards you and customize everything.
Yep, exactly. It's honestly pretty easy. The initial conversation was pretty minimal. I mean, maybe an hour conversation, getting them the information.
Yeah.
Simple, and then they built it. I had them tweak some things. I'm still kind of every week just having them fix little tiny things, always perfecting it, but it's super easy.
How many rentals have you set, or how long have you been doing private, and how many rentals do you think you've done outside of Turo?
That's a good question. So we started our private reservations in March.
Yeah.
And we started with actually have a whole bin of contracts. We started with physical contracts and like pictures of IDs and pictures of the cars. Like we did everything manually, which sucked, which absolutely sucked. So we did, I don't even know, I mean, maybe 30 or 40 reservations March, maybe into April. Then we got HQ Rentals. We started doing that. We're probably at, I can actually tell you exactly where we're at on HQ Rentals. I mean, it's not a ton. We're still kind of
that's
working on.
Turo's very good and at driving traffic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously. So that's. I've had a lot of people hit me up like, "Hey, we should build something on the side." I was like, "Dude, do you think you can drive that much traffic?" But if it was something that was supplemental, like, "Hey, and does HQ Rentals link with like your Turo calendar too?" So so if it's booked on Turo, it'll block it out on HQ. Perfect.
Yeah. It's honestly really nice. But so there's so many places that people don't realize where the money's left. So it's left in obviously the 10% or the 25 or 30, whatever you do for the insurance.
It's way more than that.
Yeah, it is because they charge the port fee. They charge the young driver fee, which we don't get, of course. They charge the additional driver fee. They charge the trip fee.
Yeah.
To make sense, that's just for them. And then, I mean, it's crazy. They make money in so many different areas. So when you do the math, like when I started doing the math on like what we're missing out on, I mean, it was sickening. It was crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've done the math several times on it. And I think, even though they say, so if you're on the 90-10, say, I feel like they're really getting about 35 to 40% more than that.
Sometimes getting like 50 to 100%. Like if they're young driver fee, if they hit a certain amount of criteria, they could hit 100% pretty easily. So
Yeah.
think about that. Like, I mean, you did really well last year. If you think about, okay, if I can do 40% more than that,
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think we'll probably do right around 500,000 this year because I'm already off to a way better start than I was
yeah,
last year, but yeah, the amount of money I know Turo's making. Probably, so last year we probably did just right under 400 grand for them. That was my side of it, and I think when I looked at their tax form, I think they said that I made them like $90,000, but I know it's way more than that. So it's probably like more like 200 plus. So what's
uh,
funny, I have customers send me. That's what kind of pisses me off a little bit about Turo. I love Turo because they drive a lot of traffic and they do a lot
yeah,
for customers or for their hosts. But
yeah,
kind of the thing that bugs me the most is they're adding so many fees onto it. It makes it hardest for us to rent, and so we're always have to drop our prices on our end.
yeah,
But like, I had a customer send me a screenshot. It was so he booked like a 8-day trip, and I don't get this a whole bunch from customers. There's some that are like kind of cheaper customers, and they
yeah,
try to get a deal, so they'll book with you, and then they'll try to negotiate after because they can't contact you before.
yeah,
And it was a long trip, and so I was willing to come down a little bit, but I was like, well, how much are you paying? So I think I was making like $500 for the trip. It was
yeah,
like 6 day or something like that.
yeah,
Uh, he shows me it, and it was like he was going to be paying like $900, and so I was like, dude, you're paying like $400 more, on this, and now you want me to negotiate down my side. Even if I come down $10 a day, it's not going
yeah.
to eat into that 900 very much.
The
So
money like that is made on private.
it is. It definitely.
All, were you messaging through the Turo app or was this texting?
He texted me on the side. Yeah,
Definitely don't want to do it, dude. If you do that through the Turo app,
yeah, yeah. No. I just told him like I was like, hey, I can drop the car like $10 a day for you. That's about all I can do. And
yeah,
then he just ended up canceling the trip either way. But it was, you see those and you're like, damn, dude, this guy's
yeah.
gonna pay $900 for a $500 that I'm gonna make trip.
Well, and imagine if they went to Hertz or Enterprise and the prices is like 50% more than that or whatever it is. I mean,
Yeah,
like in the winter, that dude. So Chrysler minivans in the winter on like Enterprise, we're seeing $179 a day.
yeah. Here they're like 250 a day. But what's crazy is people throw them on Turo, and they think it's a race to the bottom. So that's what pisses me off about Turo hosts. A lot of Turo hosts, it's like let's just all kill each other and let's just all rent them for $30 a day. It's like a Pacifica, 35 to 40 plus $1,000 after tax, title, license. Your payment's $700 or $800 anyway, and you're gonna rent it $40 a day when the Enterprise has it on for 250. I'm
See, and
like,
they're booked out. They're fully booked.
yeah, like what are you doing?
It,
Keep your prices at 150 or 140 or 130.
and that's that. I mean, there's a lot of things that made me think about private, and that was one of them. When I
Yeah,
saw people just like lower prices, I'm like, holy
yeah,
shit, what are you guys doing? Like if you look at the other companies, what they're charging, I mean, it's crazy, man. I know we're
yeah,
all kind of not fighting, but kind of fighting for first place on this in this little pool. But dude, the opportunity that's outside of this little thing that we're
yeah,
looking at, it's unbelievable. We were renting our minivans. We had a couple trips in March on our minivans. We're doing like $169 a day.
yeah,
So I mean, you can get up there. You can charge. You
yeah,
can charge what they're charging, and if they're booked out, we
yeah.
had our Chevy Malibus booking for $109 a day.
Nice. Yeah. That's kind of what I do with my calendar is I'll throw my cars, you know, to 150, 160. Say it's a normally $120 car, $130 car. I'll
Yeah.
throw for 20, 30, 40 more dollars a month or two out. So if it does get a nice trip on those days, if they booked way further out, great. Because I can always gradually start lowering my prices the closer I get to that date. So anything that say I have a $200 Suburban, and it's 2 months out, I'll keep it at 220, 230, 240. If it books those days, great. And then I'll start lowering it back down to that 200 mark. So always doing my calendar way higher further out because I get some trips. I had my Telluride booked like 9 months ago when I didn't even notice it. It was like $50 a day, $40 a day. It's usually like $120 a day. I ended up canceling the trip because I sold the car. But it's
Yeah.
like there is some people booking like 10 months at previous.
Oh
So,
yeah. The
yeah,
planners, you got
yeah,
it. For the months that you know are busy, you have to raise your prices. Like right now, we're starting to raise our prices for those months we know are going to be crazy. Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time
yeah, man.
sitting down with me.
Yeah,
Um,
dude. Absolutely.
Hope people can learn something from your success. I mean, kudos to you. I hope you have a good year this year, and you're going into busy season, so I hope it goes well.
Yeah, you too, man. Appreciate you taking the time. It's always nice. I don't know a ton of other Turo hosts. I have a few friends that have bought some cars and stuff, but to talk to somebody that has a little bit larger fleet, it's kind of cool. But yeah, let's stay in touch. Stuff like that.
Yeah, maybe we'll set up a conversation on
Yeah,
just private. I mean, because that's a big conversation for sure.
yeah, it's huge. So
Yeah.
that's definitely a whole other conversation, I'm sure. So
Yeah, it is. Well, I appreciate the time, Nick.
yep,
And I'm excited to get this up. All right, so that was a conversation with Nick. I thought it was super, super interesting, and there's tons of things that I learned. And the biggest take. All right, so that was a conversation with Nick. I'm sure you got some good information from it. I definitely did, and there's some really big takeaways. The first is that he runs the fleet by himself, 25 to 30 cars at a time, all by himself, and to me that's crazy. When I think about the crazy seasons and I think about all the cars going in and out, I'm like, how in a great busy season, which he's going into right now, how can you possibly run a full fleet by yourself? So he has a system so down that he's able to do that. So I think that is amazingly cool. We're not able to do that, or we just we don't do it. I don't know anybody else that does it, so that's super, super cool. The second thing, and this one was really surprising, he does something that we typically frown upon, which is buying cars from dealerships. And I guess when we hear about buying from dealerships, people pay way overpriced. They just go to get what they can. They pay super high interest rates, but that's not what he's doing. As you heard in the interview, he's buying them under market value. He's looking all over the country to source them. He knows where to get them, what price to get them for. So he's doing his research, and that allows him to buy it at a really good rate, rent them out, make money, and then sell them for most of the time profit. So that is something that we typically frown upon, but if it's done the right way like this, I think that's totally fine. I mean, our biggest thing is you just don't want to pay over value. So kudos to him on that. The third biggest takeaway I found out that he does is market research. And I mean, anybody can do their typical like market research just in their little area, but he goes really, really in depth. He goes really, really in depth on the cars that he buys, and he goes really, really in depth once he has the cars on the platform, how he can adjust them, modify them to make sure he's top of the ranking, which helps him out because keeping the cars at the airport allows him to have really high utilization. That way he doesn't have to pay a lot for parking. So, I mean, I would say that everything that he's doing right now, all of the systems that he has in place are very, very impressive. He's doing extremely well, and I'm super proud of him. I hope that we can grow to that size, and I hope that we can continue to learn from him. I hope you learned something from this video. If you don't mind liking, subscribing, and just continuing following the journey, really appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you in the next video.